Silently and insidiously, heroin is back in use. In suburban Suffolk County, the heavily populated area east of New York City and Long Island, nearly 600 lives was saved last year. Attorney General Schneiderman said Tuesday, while a pilot program in Staten Island, the borough where the city has been its highest rates of overdoses, has also saved at least 42 lives since it began last month. That's amazing. I think we are all asleep about our youth and their addictions. I have with me to discuss this Debbie Gross-Longo on my left from TAM, which you're going to tell me about in a minute.
Okay.
And to her left, Gary Jacobs, family law reformer and FIT TV regular contributor. Okay, so what is TAM?
TAM stands for the Addict's Mom. It's on Facebook. We are 12,000 strong throughout the United States. I happen to be the chapter coordinator for New York State, and it's a place where moms can talk without shame and without judgment. If my child had cancer, everybody and their brother would be on my front door to help. But because my son was struggling with heroin addiction, it became, nobody talked about it, not even your own family. And it was a very hard time for me at that time because I had no outlet. So I stumbled upon this, and it was the best thing that ever happened. And I got very tenacious in it. And I'm a big person for information, and if I find something that I'm passionate about, I really go head first right into it. And that's what happened.
Before I ask you a bunch of other questions, I want to ask you one very deep one for me. How do you get through the recognizing period from its inception to going forward to resolution for your child?
Usually it starts off with pills. They start with Percocet or oxycodone. Right now, their street value is about $25 per pill. That's too expensive for a kid. So a dime bag of heroin is $10. So it's much easier for them. But the problem is, it's very addictive. And it just goes through the bloodstream for 3 hours, and then you get sick, and your body needs it. So you have to your day revolves around getting your drug.
Was it in use for a long time with him?
My son struggled for 7 years, and in and out of rehabs, and I had no outlet. No one told me where to go, what to do. I've been a registered nurse on Long Island for 24 years. You would think that I would know resources, but I got on Google and I found some resources, but I put him in rehab and I did everything. The Addict's Mom gives so much information on how to help your child, the signs that may be being exhibited by the child.
Are there any standard amount of signs type of signs that you would look at? Some symptoms that you could recognize, or that a mother could recognize, or a father could recognize?
First of all, their pupils are fixed. They're not dilated. So if you have a kid that has pinpoint eye pupils, that's a problem. Okay. If they start nodding off, that's a problem. If their behavior changes, the way they dress changes, their friends change. If they used to love soccer, my son was being, watched by colleges for soccer, and all of a sudden his soccer went down the drain. So
what do you do when you see these symptoms? Because obviously teenagers can be moody, and some of those symptoms can just be a teenager being in a bad mood, not getting enough sleep. What do you do when you suspect that? Because if the child's not doing it, and you start saying, hey, you're doing drugs, and they're not, that could cause another whole set of problems. You're accusing them of something that they're not doing. So, what do you suggest that you do if you suspect that there is drug use? I mean, besides obviously checking their belongings, I would think, looking through pocketbooks or drawers, that would be a clear indication. But what else would you recommend?
Well, let me just say that being the mother of an addict, all of us, we could work for the FBI. Right. We are pretty diligent in finding what we need to find. Right. The signs are there. The signs are there. Some people choose not to think this is happening with their own child. In my case, I called my son out on it. I drug tested him when he told me, "Oh no, I don't have to go to the bathroom." Well, drink this water. Okay, I drank the water. I still don't have to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, Ryan, don't give me any nonsense. I said, because if you don't do it, I'll bring you into the ED and they'll test you.
You had found some very serious symptoms occur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You knew.
I knew right away.
So telling the audience now who's looking and thinking about what their kid might be, the signs again would be the fixed pupil.
Yeah, the pupils are very, very
Changes in
small.
behavior.
Changes in behavior, friends, things that they loved to do before, they're not doing any longer. They're a little more isolated. They're a little quieter. Sometimes the drug makes them talk very rapidly, and sometimes it depresses them. In my case, when it first began, they were smoking the heroin, and I would find straws or pens with the ink taken out, and I'd find black smudges on the walls. And I didn't understand what that was, and I confronted him, and he said to me, "Oh, Mom, it's hash." And I'm like, "I don't care if it's hash. I don't care what it is. It's a drug. It's not in my house. I don't want it happening." Escalated, and that's when I put him in drug rehab.
So, they say that addicts sometimes want to be found and they'll leave signs around.
Some of them do, or I think some of them are so damn high they don't recall that they left the needle. My son used to be very clever. He used to, if they could be so clever to get their drugs, can you imagine if they were sober and use that into a positive energy?
Do you think with the heroin, whereas Chris said sometimes people want to be caught, that sometimes they do it thinking it's going to be social and they get in over their head? I've heard that sometimes somebody can do heroin one time, and just that one time makes them addicted for the rest of their life. They struggle with it.
Is that true?
It is true.
Wow.
It is very true. It's not like alcohol where a kid can go to the party and drink a couple of beers and then, okay, next Saturday night I'm going to do the same thing. This drug takes hold of your bloodstream, takes hold of your central nervous system, and you crave it. And if you don't have it...
Does that craving occur immediately after the first use? I thought it was something you had to get used to for a while.
No, no. It takes hold of you very quickly. And when they're coming down off of it, they get symptoms of shaking and nausea and sweating, and that's when they're sick, and that's when they have to go out again and use.
So let's go to the healthy mom thing. Why is it important to have that kind of representation?
I can only speak for myself, but I know that when my son was struggling with drug addiction, I found myself up all night wondering where he is, what is he doing, and I just didn't have a healthy outlet. So I started taking yoga classes, and I became a certified yoga instructor, and then a meditational instructor, and then a Reiki healer. So that was my saving grace. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I would have done. So I incorporated it to Barbara Theodoris, who is the founder of the Addict's Mom, and she said, what a great idea. And it's a place where we don't talk about our children, we don't talk about addiction, we talk about what is going to heal us.
In your group? In
the group.
So this is different than traditional group therapy where you go and you talk about all the problems that you're having. This is a different...
They have TAM to do that on, the Addict's Mom.
So you're suggesting that somebody do both, but this is their safe place where we can, you can forget about that for whatever it is, an hour, and hopefully get healthy. But in conjunction, you're suggesting that they go to, or are you suggesting that they do go to a group where they talk about their issue?
That's what TAM is for.
Okay.
That's the main group that incorporates about 12,000 women. My group is the coordinator for New York State. I have about 800 women in my group, and we just opened the Healthy Mom, I guess about a month and a half ago, and we've already almost 300 already. I have women who have stopped smoking, that they give each other badges of, to praise themselves. Right. I put podcasts on for yoga and meditation. I put music out there. I put inspirational quotes. And you'd be amazed how it just...
Has this all happened since the discovery of your son's addiction?
No, my son has been struggling since 2009.
This happened long after?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I suffered in silence for 5 years.
There's a stigma is attached to the drug situation, as you know. what did you see changing, and what is it that you
What
could
we-
change?
What we're trying to show people is this is a disease. If you go back in your family's history, you'll find out that uncle that drank a little bit too much, or that aunt that had that special problem nobody talked about. It's pretty much heredity.
Addictions run the family.
Yes.
How is this different? Is your group mainly for drugs? This is addicts, but do you also have parents whose children have drinking problems, or binge drinking is obviously an issue. We don't really talk about it now because the heroin is so much more deadly, but do you have anybody that has any addiction, whether it's heroin, cocaine, or alcohol? Do you draw a distinction between the two?
No, we do not, because addiction is addiction. There are a lot of kids that drink alcohol. Methamphetamines is a big problem too. They're melting it down and shooting it, because taking it orally, it doesn't absorb into your body or your bloodstream. Putting a needle in your arm and injecting it, it's there.
It's instantaneous.
Right. The high is right there.
So in your group, do you actually meet, or is this all social media? I know you have a big Facebook presence, but do you actually have meetings where you get together at people's houses, or do you have a place?
As a matter of fact, right now, yes, we've had meetings at home, at my home. People have come, but I just started. We're going to be doing a meeting via Skype, and we're going to have all the state members, the chapter members, be in that, and we're going to have continuity throughout the entire the Addict's Mom. We're going to make sure that everybody has the same protocols, that we do everything correctly. You know, I guess because I was a nurse, you know, you document.
Right.
So if I'm not there, somebody can sit in my seat and see exactly what I've done. So that's what we're preparing right now. I'm putting together a training program for the Narcon,
Oh, great.
and working with the task force, the drug task force for Suffolk County.
Well, I noticed the group is a closed group on Facebook.
Yes.
So that's closed, obviously, to protect people, but obviously some of these children, they're all on Facebook. If the child wants to go into the group, is that to keep the child out so that the parent, or the mother in your case, has an outlet without worrying
Absolutely.
that their son's going to see
Yeah,
it?
we've had several children try to get into the group. We have a screening process that we all do, and we have certain guidelines that we know if it's a mother or if it's a child.
Right.
And I have the power to say yes or no.
Okay.
How would you advise someone that you discover has a child that has an addiction problem as a parent? So delivering the information I'm talking about to a parent.
Okay. My son had a year's sobriety, and he took in a childhood friend that was struggling with addiction, and he became his sober coach. Took him to meetings, talked to him all the time. The kid was doing wonderful. He had a 5-month window of clarity. I got a phone call one night that my son said, I've been calling this kid and he's not answering, and I know something's up because that's what I used to do. Long story short, his mother went in and found him dead. He was 21 years old. This is only 12 weeks ago.
Wow.
I reached out to that mother and told her who I was and what our group would do. We have grief counseling. We have a lot of different avenues for resources. And she said, well, I'll think about it. 2 weeks later, she is now, I made her the administrator for Nassau and Suffolk County. She's been up to Albany petitioning. Tonight she's in Mineola lighting the dome. She's going to be going to Washington. So I wish I had someone to reach out to me and help me when I needed something. So to me, it's very important to let a parent know.
But that's why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I find it super important to do that.
Being a family law reformer, sometimes I'm told that speaking out about the situation and talking about my case and how I feel my children were harmed, and I have a daughter who's addicted to heroin also, and sometimes I'm worried that by speaking out about it or joining groups, it's going to adversely affect her and she'll be embarrassed and hold that against me. Do you have any, I was actually told by a therapist, you know what, you have to do what's right. You can't always worry, but I'm sure you've had the feeling that you're just on eggshells, that if you say the wrong thing to the child or to the other person, you don't want to be the person who pushed your child back into doing drugs. How do you deal with that? And obviously your son knows that you're doing this, and you were doing it while he was still using.
Yes, in full act.
So
you
how do you-
sometimes wonder, I mean, I would think in that kind of position that you might be in, Gary, that you might be not directly necessarily a cause, but a cause
Right.
indirectly.
You don't want to cause anything.
and you
that
don't
might
want it
cause
to go
stress.
anything go further
Right.
to cause any other additional problem.
I did that, and my son OD'd one night. And after that happened, no holds barred. I say it as it is. I really don't care because I am going to save his life by giving him information. And if he gets annoyed at me at that, well, too damn bad. Excuse my French.
How does he respond if you get tough with him?
He used to get angry and sometimes walk out. I didn't let things escalate too far.
I don't know how you would do it any other way. I mean, wouldn't that upset Gary? I mean, you have to think about that. Probably is a tentative situation for the receiver of that information, of that toughness.
Right.
It may not be what they need, and that's what you were
Right.
referring to.
Right. The thing is with your child, I know my son wasn't on my Facebook that he knew I was even a part of the addict's mother.
Right.
He could care less because his focus was to find his drug,
Right.
not what I was doing. He would steal from Moses if he was sitting next to him.
Right.
He doesn't care who you are.
Right.
He's not your child. He's a demon. He's somebody else. It's a kid. My son is loving and caring and funny and just a great person to be around. He's sober 1 year, thank God. He's living down in Delray, Florida. He just opened up an LLC. He's starting a business. Plus,
Oh,
he's
great,
working. He's
great.
living in a beautiful apartment, and
So that
he's-
worked.
Yeah, and he's
That worked.
actually got. He said to me, "Mom, it's really funny that you're doing this show because I was approached by someone from Netflix to do an HBO series they're having on addiction and how to get sober and what to do, and he's
Yeah.
going to be a part of that."
This is something I've been hearing about in a general way for the last year or two, and that's why I said we might, in my opening, that we might be asleep. This apparently is an ongoing thing. It's popular. It seems to be gaining in usage and
Yes.
Acceptance amongst the kids.
the
Isn't it?
police are now in protective mode on it. What's that? The program that they have with the
The
Noxalone?
drug, the Narcan. The Narcon is a drug that starts, if you're cyanotic, which means you're turning blue, you put this into them and it brings them out of it. Sometimes it takes 3 shots of it.
What is it?
It's just a drug that opens up your throat.
Is it
because
like
we have-
nitroglycerin, that type of thing?
Kind of on the same kind of a situation.
Right.
Same kind of a situation, but it's saving lives. Right now, all the EMTs are carrying it.
Yeah,
Suffolk
what's the deal with that?
Police,
Go ahead, yeah, go on a little bit about it.
They've all been trained in it, and they're going into
Fire departments, I heard too?
Yes.
Can parents get it
So-
also? I would think that if you have a child, even if they're clean, God forbid they have a relapse, you should have it in the house, and
Yeah.
so you can
There's
get that. There's a program to get
Absolutely,
that through.
absolutely.
And how that's on your on your Facebook page. They can
Yes,
get
as a matter of
information.
fact,
if they
I'm putting
join.
one together. It's probably going to happen sometime in July. I'm just looking for a venue.
Okay, so
But yes, the parent gets the prescription,
right.
they give it to the pharmacist, they take it, and they have it. You're trained
That's
on how
great.
to give it either subcutaneously or through your nostrils.
Right. One of the things I think the parents struggle with is the difference between tough love and enabling your child. And that's got to be the hardest thing for a parent because you don't want to do the tough love. It's not like tough love, well, they're going to be out on the street. The tough love that they can end up, being dead.
Right.
So, I mean, that must be one of the things that parents struggle with. Do you help people, help people through that? And is tough love is the right thing to do in a case of
You have
heroin
to
addiction?
rethink how you may have managed things before under a certain kind of crisis when this is a whole other type of crisis. So you have to remanage your whole mind on it.
I mean, do you still say, hey,
Absolutely.
tough love is the thing to do to get them into therapy? Or
I believe so. I believe so. You have to be a little bit tough. Trust me, there were many nights I cried because I was tough. But when I wasn't tough and I was enabling,
Right.
that's when the problem accelerated.
I mean, that's got to be the hardest thing for any parent struggling
Yes.
through, the tough love versus enabling, and that's just it kills a parent.
It's a hard
doing that.
situation. We have girls out there that are young that are prostituting themselves for heroin. It's absolutely ridiculous. Our children are stealing from our homes. All of a sudden, your precious jewelry is no longer in the house. it has to stop. Enough is enough.
What,
And
do you think there's anything culturally happening that's causing this particular thing, or is it availability, or what would you say the precipitating factor is in its usage?
well, right now, the availability is you can find it within 10 minutes, any state that you go to. Just put the word out, use the slang, and somebody will let you know where you can get it. It's easier to get than Percocet or oxycodone.
And less expensive, apparently.
Yeah, much more less expensive. The problem is they don't know what the drug dealer is cutting it with, because of course he wants to make a profit. So he could be cutting it with Clorox, or Comet.
That
You
was
have
the
no
same
clue.
a long time ago. Remember, we used to hear about the rat poisoning thing.
Yeah, so you never know what you get. It's playing Russian roulette is what you're doing.
Is it still considered one of the more serious drugs that someone could use?
Yes,
More
because
dangerous,
it's so
most
highly
dangerous.
addictive. And because it's so highly addictive, some of these kids, and it's potent now, it's potent too, don't realize how much they're taking, and they're overdosing and they're dying. I've been a nurse, like I said, for a long time. I know two doctors in the hospital that I worked for lost both of their sons before the age of 23. So if a physician can't see the signs,
Sure.
we really have to start putting the signs out there and making it not a hushed thing. This is a big problem.
That's why I placed the emphasis so much on the symptoms before, because I think that people watching the program are going to want to know, hey, maybe I haven't been looking, maybe I've been taking a lot of vacations, maybe I'm not home, and I'm avoiding looking at my kids square in the eyes.
Or sometimes they use at night. Sometimes they come home and they use at night. I have a finished basement. My son had a beautiful apartment down there. So I would see him at 9 o'clock at night, I'm going upstairs to bed, and then, he would do whatever he did in isolation, like I said.
Can they still function in school when they're doing this, or do their grades necessarily drop, or can they still?
Some can be functional, like an alcoholic. It depends on how much that they take, but you're going to see their grades are not going to be the same. You're going to see they're slacking off in different areas. You see the change.
Have you seen younger kids?
I don't know about doing, heroin also.
Parents that you, in your group,
I
have
can't
Oh,
imagine
yes.
people started in heroin. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but somebody doesn't just jump into heroin.
No,
They start with
the pills.
marijuana, or they take pills. It seems like a big jump to.
And then they
before go
snort
to-
it.
Right.
So
So it still is
read-
like that, the transitional drugs.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Maybe
is.
the drinking, and then because to me it's a big step to even snorting, and then even to start injecting yourself, is a big step to take.
I'll tell you one story. My first husband has passed away, and he was in a really serious car accident in 1983, and he fractured his larynx. He was a mess. In our marriage, he probably had about 48 surgeries. Now the doctors
Wow.
just handed him Percocet, oxycodone, whatever he wanted, because he was so in pain. I wrote to Albany back then. I didn't even know anything really about addiction, but I wrote to Albany saying I'd call up his doctors and I'd be like, why are you giving him this? You don't understand what's going on here.
So you knew he became addicted to it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's probably the main reason why he passed away. I was divorced from him at that time. I took my children out of that situation, but he died like 2 years after I left him. And I think my son has a predisposition, DNA-wise, because he did. And my brother-in-law, his brother, laid in a morgue for 4 days before they knew who he was, and he died of a drug overdose also.
Wow.
And I said to and it's funny because when my son was in active addiction, and my first husband was, I'd say to God, why is drugs so much in my life? Why do you keep giving me all this drugs? Why? And now I know why.
Well,
Because
you
it's
found the
biologically
cause
connected,
and,
yeah. What's happening politically or on the lobbying front in terms of making this more prevalent, more aware? What's happening?
People have been going up to Albany. Right now they're doing a summit up in Albany for this actual problem. The governor said that New York State has the highest addiction rate. They're trying to change rehabs too, because the insurance companies dictate how long you can have a child in rehab, and sometimes it's not enough. So we're lobbying for that also.
Is any part of the lobbying effort geared or focused on the biological contingent we talked about, the hereditary contingent?
Not right now. Not right now.
I mean, wouldn't that be, as a nurse, aren't you saying, boy, somebody should be doing that?
They're putting it out there, but not as much as it should be. You know, it's a disease.
Are people
It's a
buying
disease.
into it? Are they looking?
Some people are. Most people are, because they look back in their family tree, and then, like I said before, oh, Uncle
Well, I mean-
Al used to.
Yeah, like you said before, but I meant, what about the politicians? Are they receiving it as a hereditary connection? Or are they,
some of them are.
looking at individual issues?
I think because the
Not
epidemic
enough.
is so high right now, they're concentrating on helping to help the addict, not focusing on the disease.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah,
Seems to be going out.
that's where their tenacity is right now.
Well, the way that you showed it is by this the system you have, Noxolone, what I was talking about before. I mean,
Narcan.
you get somebody who's in trouble, boom, you try to save it.
I
But
think
that doesn't work on anything in the beginning where
No,
your hereditary
that's only
connection.
that's only if you're, you know.
That's first aid versus prophylaxis.
Right. Another thing, my son used to belong to DARE. Back in the elementary schools years ago,
Right.
they used to do the DARE program with the cops. My son won the poster contest, the essay contest, and hello. So I was talking to Police Officer Kennedy, who is the drug a drug officer that's going into schools and is speaking again. And I went to a meeting, and the movie that he showed, the presentation, was so dramatic and so horrific that I think it will really scare a kid, because it scared me. It just was right to the point and very graphic, and they're starting to try to go into the schools again, and not only elementary. I think junior high, that's where peer pressure begins and accelerates in high school. Start at junior high and keep it going through the entire thing. You know, just like they put a car in front of a school that's all crashed, you know, don't drink and drive. Well, we should be in there and talk about don't get high.
one of the things you mentioned, people who are watching it may hear some of those symptoms, and they may go home after seeing the show tonight and look through their child's drawers or pocketbook
Yeah, hopefully we
and
can-
find
yeah.
something. You know, one of the things we used to say with alcoholics is you need to do an intervention where the whole family gets together and says, hey, we need to get in help. But does that work for a heroin addict, or is it a totally this is a different animal?
Well, we have a guy, I call him, his name is Matty, and he's a psychologist. And young guy, very built, tattooed, he's got his master's, he's a smart guy. We call him, he goes in and talks to the addict. Within 10 minutes, that kid is ready to go to rehab. Because
He's taught strong arm or relating to them?
That's that program
will-
where the prisoners go and they scare the heck out of the kids,
scare
and
them
the
straight.
delinquents get straight. Yeah,
Right.
scared
So he's
straight.
scaring them, or he's encouraging them? Or?
He's telling them what could happen to them. And because he's not, I call them, some educated people are just too book smart.
Right.
They're not street smart. A kid is not going to listen to that. He's going to listen to somebody who's also book smart and street smart.
Right. I think a lot of times they're not going to get into rehab on their own. They're not going to voluntarily say, hey, I'm going to sign up. And with the laws the way they are now, you can't really sign up somebody necessarily for rehab. So you're saying they can go onto your website, join, and they can get into contact with this person, and that would be the way you would recommend to get the person the help that they need,
Right.
rather than the traditional intervention.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
got to wrap this up. I'm sorry. Thank
Okay.
you. I hope we approached some help that we
I
might be able
appreciate
to get today. Thanks
having
for
a
your
voice.
opportunity. Appreciate that. And that's Debbie Gross-Longo from TAM, and from the other group is the New York State.
New York State chapter, if you're in New York, and TAM, Healthy Moms.
Healthy Moms, okay, for the addictions of heroin, of course. Thank you very much, Gary Jacobs. Societal and political trends. This is definitely a societal trend. A rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week, whether they like it or not. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.